Monday, December 10th, 2018. This is the regular City Council meeting for the City of St. Peter. It is 7:00 p.m. We will call the meeting to order. Would all please join in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everyone should have a copy of the agenda. Are there any changes or corrections to the agenda? If not, is there a motion for approval?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
All in favor of the agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Next, we have the minutes from our November 26, 2018.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor of the minutes as written, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those minutes are approved. Next, we will address visitors. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the council on any agenda item? Seeing no one, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the council on any matter whatsoever? Seeing no one, we will move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda begins in detail on page 9 and concludes with the resolution on pages 21 through 23, and includes the following license applications, and these are all for January 1, 2019 to 12/31/2019. For soft drink, there are 30 of them. For tobacco, there are 13. For amusement device, there are 8. For show license, 6. For jukebox, 6. For dance, 1. For Patrick's on Third. And for taxi cab, for Ecumen. Next, we have some surplus items, materials that are no longer needed, and they will be put up for auction or for sale. There are 49 air, oil, and grease filters. We have the following board renewal appointments to the library board for 2019 to 2021, and these first ones are all for that same dates, 2019 to 2021. The library board for Michelle Twait, Planning and Zoning for Joseph Urban and Ken Rosso. The Civil Service Commission for Colleen Spike. The Heritage Preservation Commission to Judy Douglas. And the last one for the Hospital Commission, and this one is from 2019 to 2023 for Laura Hulsebus. Plus the following schedule of disbursements for November 22nd, 2018 through December 5th, 2018. Are there any questions or comments on the consent agenda?
One quick clarification. This list of advisory boards and commissions, these are the individuals who currently serve on commissions and boards and are seeking to re-up for another term.
Yep.
We do anticipate some openings as well.
Yeah, there are some,
And-
but we kind of went through it, and there's not a lot. Todd's going to talk about it.
Yeah, at the
again.
end of the meeting, I do have a report you'll see on there, and then we have a listing of how many openings there are
Okay.
on each of the boards or
Great.
commissions with openings.
Just if anybody's listening in, there is still the opportunity.
Watch us to the end of the meeting, and you'll get to see what ones are,
That's
ones are
right.
on there.
Yeah, there's
you had a question?
cliffhanger.
Yeah, and page 17, Nicollet County Finance for $50,931. What is that?
Third one down.
Sally, can you help me out with that one? That one I don't know off the top of my head.
Final payment request. Pete's got it.
I believe that is for one of our last payments for the Broadway Avenue project. So we partnered with Nicollet County out there on County Road 5,
Yeah.
Broadway Avenue.
Okay.
And so there was a punch list and some items to be resolved. There was retainage, and then after they get everything done, they break down the engineering and all those costs, and then they come in and we divide that up, and then this would be the payment for those activities.
Okay. It was just a rather large amount, and it
Yep.
caught my eye on what it was.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions, comments on the consent agenda? Again, the resolution is on pages 21 through 23. Is there a motion for approval?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any more questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Brand.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Councilmember Connell.
Aye.
Mayor Zinnik.
Aye.
Councilmember Carl.
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. Next, we have unfinished business, which there is none, so we will move right to new business. And first up tonight is the 2018 tax levy payable 2019. And Sally and Todd, I would imagine.
Mayor members, we'll let Sally take it away here. I'll try and run the PowerPoint presentation that has a lot of the information that's included in your packet. So Sally, I'll leave it to you.
Mr. Mayor and council members, we are here tonight. We're going to ask approval for the 2019 tax levy and budgets for general fund and special funds. General fund revenue for the year is at $7,547,877. That is a decrease of $535,893. The largest decrease, and this PowerPoint isn't the greatest, I guess, it doesn't come up very well, but the largest decrease from 2018 is due to permits and inspections. As you all know, we've had some large projects, River's Edge expansion, Gustavus, Noble Hall, the Best Western Hotel, and the Regional Treatment Center. Those revenues were in 2018 and will not be repeated in 2019. When the budget was set in 2018, those were one-time monies. So even though revenue goes down, it will not impact the operations for the year. We use that as one time. We did not use it to pay ongoing expenses in the general fund. Local government aid is at $3,044,145, or 40.3% of our total budgeted revenue. The local government aid only increased a little over $4,000 this year, or 0.00146%. Very small increase, and it's a large portion of our budget. So there had to be some property tax increase, and that's why that's why the levy to some extent is going up. We're going to use some reserve balance to purchase SCBA equipment for the fire department. Total cost of that is $235,000. We're going to fund $195,000 of that in reserves, and the remaining $35,000 is going to be on the equipment certificate. Electric, water, wastewater, and stormwater, we're projecting them to transfer funds of $1.5 million. This is the same amount that's being transferred in 2018. We know, and that's 6.5% of the general, or of the gross revenue for those funds. One thing we do know is that number probably won't be right. It could probably be higher or lower, but for right now, it's the best that we have, so we left it flat year over year. We're not doing any increases or decreases. General fund expenditures will increase to a little over 7.7 million, or 220,591, which is 2.9% above the 2018 budget. Drivers for the increase are mainly wage increase of 3%, and medical costs increase of just under 10%. As we get into the charts later on, the general fund, this is 69% of our general fund. So employee costs are still run as the major component of our general fund budget. We have some building maintenance costs, about $30,000 at the municipal building. We need some repairs to the front door, some carpet, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. The unit right now is about 20 to 25 years old. We don't know if it's going to go, but if it goes, it's going to be about $20,000 to replace it or repair it. So if it happens, that's why we budgeted for it. Public Works is going up about $48,800, and they have some roof repair that needs to be done. There's one of the 3 furnaces is on schedule to be replaced, and we have some tools for the mechanic shop. We also have sidewalk replacements for $50,000 back in for 2019. In 2017, we used funds to do work earlier, so there was no work for sidewalks in the 2018 budget. So it looks like it's an add, but it's just continuation of the program that we have. Street maintenance is up about a little over $56,000. Most of that is due to a truck replacement that we're going to do. It's a 2006 dump truck. It's used to plow snow in cul-de-sacs and haul aggregate for smaller jobs. Right now it's running at higher than average repairs. We've had to replace injectors, turbo replacements, and had multiple breakdowns. So, also included in the levy and this budget is the approval of the library and community center budgets. The library fund has had the same levy for the last 5 years. The 2019 library budget includes increases for tax of approximately $13,500. Taxes are collected at $283,640, and the fund balance right now is only going to be projected to be at 2.2%. Continuing the same programming as offered in 2018. Nicollet County is providing an additional $5,000. We found that out last week. We're happy for the additional funding from the county, but we didn't change the budget right now. We're trying to put that back into reserves because it might not be ongoing either. There's no commitment to continue that in future years. And then community center is not, the actual building is not funded. The operations are not funded by the levy, but the debt service is 100%. And that is being paid through 2019. And then it will be paid off at the end of 2019. But expenditures for the maintenance of this building is basically the same as what's been in 2018. We're also, so the proposal is for the levy to increase from 50.01 to 50.27. This is based on a gross levy increase of $286,935 or 10.6%. This is down from the preliminary levy in September, which was at 50.71%, or $305,475. $22,540 or 11% there was a reduction driven by the equipment certificate. We removed $100,000 out of the equipment certificate, so that saved us $22,540 on the debt payment, or on the equipment certificate. And then last week, we also found out that the net tax capacity was up slightly from what I used to figure the preliminary levy. So that drove the levy down to 50.27. Expenditures are still higher than revenues in this budget, but we are using reserves to cover those expenditures. The general fund balance at the end of 2018 is projected to be $4,046,029 or 54.9% of next year's budget. The 2019 is projected the general revenue balance to be $3,687,045 or 47.9%. This is well within the reserve guidelines of 30 to 50% of the following year's expenditures. What this means to property owners is that if your house was valued at $150,000 in 2018 and your house value did not change, your increase in taxes will be $3.28 for the year for the city. And then going through some of the charts and that we have, here's a budgeted capital or budget expenditure comparison between the different funds. We have the general government, public safety, which is not just police, it's fire, police, and the building inspector. So that's basically slightly higher. Public works, rec, and then other miscellaneous. So expenditures are staying relatively flat. We do have in the public safety, and then here it is for the last 5 years and how it compares and the spending on those. In the police, we are adding a school resource officer starting in September of 2019 if the school also budgets for a police officer. So they will be funding it. It's a 60-40 split if it happens. So I have 40% of that budgeted.
Yep, so we budgeted essentially for the last quarter of 2019.
Right, their school year 19-20 is when they wanted to put that in. So those are our operational. Next, we have general fund by departments. It's a little busy.
Let me see, Sally, is that?
Operational, general fund expenditures, whoops, we're a little bit out. But these are operations by departments again. Another, it's a little bit harder to read, but by each individual department, you can see the spending there. General fund revenues, as I said, you can see in 19, you can see the decrease due to the building permits and administrative fees.
All of this information, Sally, is online. And
In the
you-
packet and
yeah,
everything
in the
else, so
packet
people
and
can see it.
online, and people can
Can look
see
at the
it.
charts and everything
If
else.
they want it.
And we
go through
encourage
that.
them to give us a call if they have a question too.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yep. So, and here's the expenditures just graphed out for the last 5 years. Not a whole lot of change. And then here's the one by percentages. As you can see, property taxes are 21%, state aid and state grants and aids, and that's where your local government aid is the biggest portion, is 39% in 18. It grows up to 43% with us losing the permits went down, so local government aids becomes a bigger portion of the pie, and so do property taxes. Okay, revenue, and then expenses are out, and that's where I said personnel services and the differences between the two, and that's where it grows to 69% in 2019. So our biggest costs really are our people, which are the most important. As Todd said this afternoon, we can have the nicest looking trucks and everything else, but we don't have the right people running them. It doesn't matter. We need our people, so that's important. So what I'm asking is that we pass the resolution on page 120, that's for the property tax levy. And then there's a resolution on page 122 for the budget for 2019.
Questions? Sally, I have, you pointed out one of them, when you said the increase on the $150,000, using that as an example, is $3. But that is only, so people know, that's only the city portion
Correct.
of their property taxes, school and
School and
county.
county are different, or
And
increase
then,
also.
what was, if you can find it again, at projected reserve percentage at the end of 2019? What was that,
47.9.
47.9? And then I think you said that our goal is 30 to 50, I believe.
35 to 50.
35 to 50,
35
right.
to 50.
Okay.
Mayor members too, if I could, Mayor, add on to that question about reserves at the end of 2019. That does not include the $100,000 match in the pavilion.
Right.
That would lower you just a little bit more to that 46%
46%
range.
is roughly if we lower it.
Yeah.
Okay,
And that's for the Schmidt Foundation
Yeah.
match.
the matching. Okay. Any other questions or comments? None? Wow.
We have been going over this, not quite on a weekly basis, but it seems almost since September, early
September
September.
of what year?
October, August, maybe, this information, it is, while it's still fascinating to us, after this many months, it's gotten a little shop worn, I think, to listen to again. Though it is incredibly important, and people in the community ought to be going online and looking at this stuff, because it is interesting.
Thank you. Anyone else?
You don't have to be a numbers person. There's a great memo in the packet that explains, it's a great narrative for what the plan is for the year. From a staff perspective, budgets are not just about the numbers. It is more so about the plan and what the intent is. What are you trying to do in the 2019 year?
Okay, the resolution adopting the final 2018 tax levy for collectible in 2019 appears on pages 120 and 121. Is there a motion for approval?
Move the resolution, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Grams. Councilmember Piper.
Aye.
Councilmember Horny.
Aye.
Mayor Zena.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brand.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Next, we have a resolution on page 122 approving the general fund, special revenue funds, debt service funds, capital funds, and agency funds for 2019 fiscal year. Are there any questions or comments on this? Steve?
Todd, you know, on 122, item H, tornado revolving loan, what is that used for?
$75,000, letter H.
Oh, that is a fund that has dollars in it that are essentially left over from the tornado time. They were originally generated as payments to the city of St. Peter for activities that were undertaken as a part of the tornado. So there's no levy for this. This just sets the budget for that fund.
So it is active at this point then?
It is mostly inactive. It's very rare that resources move in and out of it, but we set it and establish it as a part of a fund that you have a budget for because your auditors audit against that.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Anyone else? The resolution, once again, approving the general fund, special revenue fund, debt service fund, capital funds, and agency funds for 2019 appears on page 122. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second. Any more questions? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Grahams,
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer,
Aye.
Councilmember Corman.
Aye.
Mayor Ziegler.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Next up, thank you, Sally. Next up, we have the Benedictine Nursing Home sale. Todd?
Mayor and members, this is really a three-prong approach to the nursing home that you have attached to Rivers Edge Hospital. And so you've talked about this a number of times, and the appropriate documentation has been provided starting on page 127 through your counsel at Briggs and Morgan. And really what we're doing as a part of this overall action, again, is threefold. First of all, it provides for a termination of the current lease that you have with Benedictine Health Systems. It approves for entering into a new lease, a new land lease with Benedictine Health Systems of St. Peter. That's for the land on which the nursing home sits, the building itself sits. It includes the grounds that are right adjacent to that, and of course the parking lot that would be off Klein Street that's affiliated with that facility. It also includes what we call at that facility the link, or the vast majority of the link as it was built to attach that facility to the hospital. The last thing that it does is sells the facility, sells the nursing home, again, on which you have a long-term lease that it sits on the land that's on the hospital campus there. And so this provides for that to occur. As you may recall, you took action previously to allow a host resolution for debt to be issued by the city of Bethel to provide the financing for Benedictines to purchase this facility. By the way, they're also purchasing Heritage Meadows as a part of that financing. That's not part of this transaction though tonight because you don't own that one. We're only talking about your transaction tonight. Overall, the amount of money that will be flowing through the city is a little bit over $9 million, and that includes the remaining debt that you have on the nursing home. It also includes affiliated costs. We have a few costs for surveys, and we have some legal fees, and we have some title work, and some stuff like that that goes on that Benedictines are also responsible for. As you may recall, when we entered into this agreement many years ago, we started with Benedictines through a request for proposal process, and so they were selected. And at that time, when the development agreement was put in place, the agreement stipulated how a transfer might occur. And one of the stipulations was that the city wouldn't necessarily make any money on this, but if a sale did occur to the Benedictines, it was the goal to pay off all the debt, get that off your books, lease land to them, and of course for them to pay the expenses related to any transaction of the sale. And so that's what you see in front of you tonight within the resolution that is on page 127.
Questions? Todd said the resolution authorizing execution of a purchase and sale agreement and ground lease, Benedictine, is on page 127 and 128. Is there a motion for approval?
So
Make a
moved,
motion
Mr.
to
Mayor.
approve.
Go Steve first, Ed second. Any questions at this point?
I do have to comment, guys, this is actually a really big deal. This is something that you undertook many years ago to ensure that there'd be appropriate number of nursing home beds within your community and the right skill level and the right kind of facility for your community. And it's all working out the way that you would plan. So somebody was mentioning earlier, it's good to have a plan and to have a plan that works out. And so that's wonderful.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Jerry. I think you two were the two that were around then, right? Any other questions or comments at this point?
Mr. Mayor.
Steve?
I've had the privilege of being on the Benedictine board now since I've been on the council.
Steve, you are the council liaison that was
Correct.
required as a part of the agreement.
And I must say that St. Peter and Nicollet County is very fortunate to have this facility. I mean, it is truly a remarkable place. If you've ever had the opportunity to go there, it truly is. It's a wonderful place to be. So, and I do thank our council members that were involved in that at the time.
Anyone else? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Pfeiffer?
Aye.
Councilmember Cummings?
Aye.
Mayor Zeman?
Aye.
Councilmember Curran?
Aye.
Councilmember Brand?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Next up, we have the Minnesota Square Pavilion Project reimbursement. And Todd and Sally? again?
Yeah, if there's a really technical question, Sally's here to answer all the tough ones, but really, this is a part of the state law, and council's undertaken this before related to other projects, and state law requires adoption of a resolution so that if you have expenditures that you want reimbursed from any debt that you would issue towards this project, you are already starting to incur expenditures, you're required to pass a resolution that says that, and this is the resolution that says that, and that would be the plan.
Okay. Questions?
So we're reimbursing ourselves?
Yeah, so what this really does allow is for any debt that you'd issue to include expenses that you would have incurred before you issued the debt.
So like architecture work.
Yep.
Some of that work,
So
some
if
of
they
the,
start digging and stuff like that and
Yeah.
everything, we
Exactly.
can
yeah,
reimburse
so
our
if we are, if we
general
use
fund.
reserves to do that, we can reimburse the general fund for that.
Yep.
Okay, anyone else? The resolution declaring the official intent of the city, St. Peter, to reimburse certain expenditures from the proceeds of bonds to be issued by the city for the pavilion project. Here's on pages 130 and 131. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any more questions? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Quinn?
Aye.
Mayor Zeman?
Aye.
Councilmember Curran?
Aye.
Councilmember Brand?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer?
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Next up, we have a council vacancy appointment. And Todd, you want to start it out?
I can, Mayor and members, as you know, you established a process that provided opportunity for folks that had interest in serving in the seat that Councilmember Brand will be leaving as of the end of this year. And so we've executed the process based on how you directed. Part of that process was to have the mayor conduct personal interviews with each of the candidates. You had 10 folks submit information, 10 candidates submit information, and the mayor has asked that Roger Paris be appointed to the position. That would be for a one-year appointment, and it would be effective January 1st. That seat would stand for re-election in November of 2019 with a new seat at the early part of 2020. Resolutions included in your packet on page 133.
Okay. Any questions, comments? This was a process. I did talk to 8 out of the 10 quite for length of time, 2 of them more for a 10, 15-minute, just little briefing at their places of employment or at a meeting. We are fortunate. The pool was very, very good, and my deciding factor was, because everything else being equal, I figured Mr. Paris, with his more recent experience, would be able to start the job on day 1, and that was my reasoning. So, sorry to the other 9. I knew there was probably 9 people that weren't going to be real pleased about it, but that's just the way the process worked. Any questions? Susie?
I have some thoughts,
Sure.
and I have some concerns with your choice, Mr. Mayor. I spoke with Mr. Paris today and expressed this to him as well. So I want to start out by saying that my concerns are in no way personal, and they're in no way a lack of confidence in Mr. Paris's ability to serve. As most people listening in would know, Mr. Paris served for 4 years. He did everything he was asked to do during those 4 years and served quite well. I enjoyed serving with him. I appreciated hearing his viewpoints. A lot of times we'll disagree on things, but I always felt that we disagreed respectfully, and I appreciated what he had to bring to the table. Beyond that, I would say that I consider Roger a friend at this point. I care about him, and I care about his family, and I trust that he also thinks of me as a friend, despite my criticisms right now. And I believe very much that he is working in the best interests of the city of St. Peter. So if he were to run again in 2019 and get elected, I would absolutely welcome him to come back to our council, and I'd be very happy to serve with him again. My issue is the November 2017 election. In that election, Mr. Paris and I were both up for re-election. There were a total of 4 candidates who ran, and the voters of St. Peter decided at that time that they did not want Mr. Paris to be representing St. Peter. I think that that's an important point. I think that that's something that we need to listen to. So of the 10 applicants, of whom you say the majority were quite qualified, I think that it's the wrong choice to choose the one who the voters most recently said they didn't want representing them. So I'm disappointed for a couple reasons. One, I feel that appointing Mr. Paris is directly in opposition to the wishes of the voters in Ward 1. I think it's disrespectful to them. I think it's disrespectful to the election process for a person to be voted out of office and then appointed into a vacancy the very next year. Secondly, I think that when we were having our conversations about how to fill this position, there were some lovely conversations about increasing the diversity of our council and expanding the opportunities for people to serve and to look at people who might not come forward in other circumstances. And so to choose Mr. Paris feels like the same old, and a lost opportunity in some ways to expand our horizons. And finally, I think that while this is not the case, this choice, especially in consideration of that last election, really feels like cronyism. It feels like behind-the-door negotiations. It feels like a sneaky way of getting something that we didn't get through the proper channels. And I don't believe that that's how St. Peter works. I don't believe that that's why you made this decision that you did. But for people at home who are watching this process and the ones who've contacted me in the last couple days, that's what they're fearful of. The optics of this look bad. It looks like someone was voted out of office and we've selectively used this opportunity to get him back into that seat. That's not fair to the voters. That's not fair to Mr. Paris to have that cloud hanging over him either. And so for those reasons, I'm going to be opposed to appointing Mr. Paris for this position. Once again, I want to emphasize, it is not in any way reflecting a doubt on my part for him to do the job. I just don't think that it's appropriate for us to appoint him under these circumstances. That's all.
Any other comments?
This is not the first time this has happened. It happened when we had a council member move up as mayor, and no, before that. Anyway, we had the second highest vote getter get in. And if you're talking about, it seems unfair. It's unfair to the voters that had not had an opportunity to vote for any of the other candidates either.
If I may?
Sure.
The difference is that the voters had a chance to vote for Mr. Paris, and they specifically didn't select him. In my mind, any of the other 9 unproven candidates would be a better choice because maybe they're what the voters are looking for. We heard the voters' opinion on 1 candidate out of the 10, and it seems wrong to choose him given that election outcome.
But I think what Jerry just said was the second, I don't know who that was, Jerry, but the second place person during that time was appointed.
Right. And I understand, and I think that's a different situation because that person wasn't voted out of office. If that person had had 4 years to prove themselves and then got voted out, that would be entirely different from an unproven new candidate.
Okay. Ed, you had something?
It's about the same type of conversations. I had several emails, several phone calls, pretty much about the same thing. I never had the pleasure of working with Roger, but a lot of them just said it wasn't fair that he got appointed to it. And for that reason, I'm also going to oppose it.
Steve, did you have something?
Yeah, you know, I've given this a lot of thought, and I've gotten more emails regarding this appointment than I've had in anything since I've been on the council. I've given a lot of thought to what you're talking about. But in terms of the election is not to vote somebody out. It's not that way. And initially, when we had talked about this a couple of weeks ago, I asked if the individual that that took third place had applied. He had not. So I could see him being appointed. He did not. Roger was then the next candidate in line. Our mayor is voted in by all the residents of St. Peter, and the residents have trusted that our mayor does and make objective decisions. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been voted in. Somebody else would have ran against him. But that's not the case. So I believe that all the citizens of our community trust our mayor in making the appropriate decision. So in my case, I have no problem with Roger at all. Not at all. So the other final point, I called our mayor up and I told him that I would not voice my opinion because I respected his opinion and his objectivity, and that I could work with anybody that was appointed to this role. But in appointing somebody that is completely unaware of the process and the procedures that this council goes through, wouldn't be, in my opinion, fair to the individual, because they would be totally lost for a year, in my opinion. Many people run for the council, never have attended a meeting, never have watched or interacted with the council in any matter, and don't have a clue what they're getting themselves into. Or Mr. Paris has been on the council for 4 years, and he's totally familiar with the process. I consider Roger a very intelligent human being, and he's very objective in his thought process, and he challenges us all to think. And Roger is an independent individual, and for that matter, I have no problem with Mr. Ferris being on the council.
John, do you have something? I thought you were leaning forward earlier. No, you don't have to. I'm not saying you have to.
So, sure. So Roger was on the council for 4 years. I thought he did a very fine job. He did his homework. He talked. He voiced his opinion. When he didn't know things, he didn't say, "I don't know things." He just said, "You have to explain that to me." And he kept pushing until he got explanation that he understood. He had a perspective, a political perspective that's different than most people's, and it was enlightening to us, and we all benefited from it. So if I hadn't been in the North Ward in the last election, I certainly would have voted for Roger. In addition, I really like Roger. He and I have spent time together. I find him friendly and open and completely and sometimes overly directly honest, and just a pleasure to spend time with. My difficulty is that this council is 6/7 middle-aged and older white guys. That's 87% of the council is made up of that particular demographic. That demographic in our voting population is maybe 30%. That's not really a good representation for us, for our community. Now, people have voted us all into office, so people are comfortable with having 87% be middle-aged and older white guys. I think part of the reason is that it is the safe and comfortable and easy thing to do, much as the mayor's choice was. That if we were to be a little more aggressive in our thinking, a little more concerned about diversity, and appointed somebody else to the council's not going to go to hell in a handbasket in a year with somebody who is just learning the ropes. But it would be an opportunity to be on TV and for people to see that people that are different from us are not people to be frightened of.
So John, let me, if I can, I'm going to interrupt you in the middle. When you're talking about diversity, are you talking about just male, female,
And age,
and age?
sure.
Because I did get an email from someone speaking to, if I wasn't going to appoint a woman to take the position, which I should, is that what they said? I should appoint someone of color.
Oh, well, okay.
And if we're talking diversity, I don't know of anybody of the other 9 candidates that were, they were all Caucasian to me.
Oh, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
They seem to be to me also. We hear even in candidate forums, people running for office, people expressing the fear of others in the community. And I think this is an opportunity to put people who are different from us on the council, on TV, so people can see that they are normal and like us, and that the community would benefit. So I see this as a lost opportunity, and I'm disappointed in your choice. As much as I like Roger.
Yeah, but I guess what, of the other candidates, where is the diversity? Just younger?
There's younger and there's gender differences, both,
That's what I asked you before, if you were
Yeah.
talking diversity, if you were talking about gender.
and age, sure. There were 3 candidates, 4 candidates that were just like us, middle-aged and older white guys, and he could have chosen from the other set,
There were.
I think. So, but you know, it's not a bad choice. It's a safe choice. It's I think, a non-controversial choice. He's going to do a wonderful job.
Well, I disagree with the non-controversial, because evidently you didn't read the emails. I don't know if you ever read your emails,
well,
but
yeah, I know. I
there
read
was
the
there was
emails.
plenty of dissension from those emails.
Okay, that was a poor choice of words. I agree. But it is it's a safe and conservative choice, whether it's controversial or not.
Okay, Steve?
Of all the emails, I closed every email that I received, thanking the individuals for being an active member of our community, and hoping that these individuals that did apply, that they will run in the open position in 2019, to go through the process like everybody else. And in terms of people's fear, I have not heard or had that expressed to me, people's fears of different people in the community. If that's the case, I wouldn't be on this council. Believe me, people stay away from me because they are afraid of me, that I might have some communicable disease, and that's fine with me. But the point is that if I was voted in based on my disability, I don't want to be in this council. I was voted in because I have something to offer, and I hope that's the case. And I hope that the people that did apply that weren't selected, that they do run in 2019, because they do have the opportunity then.
Anyone else? The resolution appointing Roger Paris to fill the City Council Ward vacancy, Ward 1 vacancy, appears on page 133, and before I ask for a motion, Mr. Brand, by your position, you are not able to vote in this situation. So I thought you were aware of it, but I thought I'd better just remind. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please, Mark.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Garland.
Nay.
Should I ask Jeff?
No.
Councilmember Johnson.
Nay.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Councilmember Quinn.
Aye.
Resolution is approved by a vote from 4 to 2. Thank you, Roger. Next up, we have a Safe Routes to School grant application.
Mayor Zeman and City Council, Staff is here tonight, again, to ask you guys to approve a grant application by city staff to apply for Safe Routes to School funding. As you can tell from the memo, we're looking at a $536,000 project that would be completed in the year 2023. That does include a matching grant, or a grant, which would have some city matching funds of about 20%. And we'd also be responsible for engineering, which amounts to about 20% of the total project. So we would get 60% funded, 40% would come from our funding choices, a general fund of some sort there. And if we were successful, we would apply, and before the first of the year, we'd have information back around April. As you guys are aware, we have used Safe Routes to School funding in a variety of different places within the community. The school district and our chief of police are very proactive in helping us obtain these funds by writing letters of support. As you can tell from the map on page 136, which is also on your overhead up here, the areas impacted have a direct impact to the South Elementary, the middle school and North Elementary, and the routes leading to those, which are frequently used by our kids going to school there. You'd see some work done along Church Street, along Washington Avenue, and on Jefferson Avenue and South 7th Street in that area. And what we're looking for today is permission from you guys to make the application.
Questions? Steve?
Pete, I just want to do, as I was reading through this yesterday, I really felt so positive that you're taking this initiative on. And I've just always been impressed with what you've been doing to make our community safe for all people by having really good sidewalks, and I really appreciated that.
Anyone else? The resolution authorizing submission of transportation alternative solicitation funding application for the St. Peter Safe Routes to School project appears on pages 137 and 138. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Carlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brand.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Aye.
Councilmember Quinn.
Aye.
Mayor Zimmerman.
Aye. Resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Next up, we have the resolution establishing the 2019 non-union, non-contract wages. Thank you.
Mayor members, included in your packet on page 139, 140, and 141 is a memo that outlines pay, or my recommended pay modifications from the 2018 year to the 2019 year. As the mayor indicated, this would be for non-contract, non-unionized folks. So this excludes the city administrator and all the folks that are in your 5 collective bargaining units. And so the recommendation here is for a 3% pay modification for those groups. This also excludes what we might consider our temporary or our seasonal help as well. So folks like the ice skating house, warming house attendants, which you just took action on a month or so ago to establish a scale. This would include lifeguards, which are handled separately, as you may be aware. So that's the recommendation and falls within your budget outline that we've discussed since mid to the end part of July. Also, every year I come to you with some changes that I'm looking to make based on some of the statistical data that I see and some of the other activities that I see going on. It's really driven by a number of different things. It's certainly the statistics. At times, there's some organizational modifications that have gone on that I'm trying to address as a part of this. At times, although more rarely, there are organizational changes that are coming into the future that I'm hoping to address and be a little bit proactive on. A lot of it relates to where I think the marketplace has gone with like positions in other communities of similar size or similar scale and scope. And so I think that's an important part of this. So let me go down those as well. First of all is the assistant lead librarian. This I'm asking for an additional 50 cents per hour. What we see in comparison with similar sized libraries from similar sized communities is a higher pay scale altogether. You may recall that this one was also addressed through pay equity. So this is above and beyond what that pay equity modification that you approved at your last meeting was. Building official, this is for your lead person, your building official. particularly in the southern part of Minnesota, outside of the metro area, finding the qualified building officials with all the certifications that yours has is exceedingly difficult, a major challenge. And the data that I see from the Southwest chapter of the building officials group is that we lag pay substantially in that area. I also mentioned that one of the things that it has an impact on this to some extent and should, I think, help you make you feel more positive about this change is that because of the level of certification that you have and require within your building official, you are able as a city to take on inspection services for projects that otherwise would go to the state of Minnesota. And frankly, that's generated a lot of revenue for you related to the state hospital and related to Gustavus in particular. Building inspector is kind of in the same boat. As you note, that one is on a per hour basis, not a per year basis, because some of your employees are salaried and some are on a per hour basis. So that's the difference that you see throughout this list. Building inspectors, again, as I mentioned earlier, we're lagging in that area, and the pay is much higher within the region that we are in for those types of services and those kind of certified folks. Computer service technician 2, as you know, I've been on a process with you to move this closer to technician 1. This is not only a pay issue, but it has to do with organization as well, where when you started with computer technician 1 and computer technician 2, we really viewed those as being stacked position where one had more responsibility than the other. That really is no longer the case, and we've divided it more vertically than horizontally, and that you have one position that deals with lots of issues related to PCs and SPPA and lots of other things, interconnection of software with finance department and other things. And then you have this position which deals with a lot of your hardware issues and your networking issues. Frankly, you couldn't hire someone today at the amount of pay that we have within this position with the level of expertise and certification that we have on staff. And so I'm trying to keep pace. Again, some of these relate to when we're likely to see changes at some point in the future as well. The council has long told me that they don't want to pay somebody so low that when they leave, the next person that comes into that seat, we pay a lot more just to get them. We want to try and treat the employees that we have currently appropriately in that respect. I think this falls into that category as well. Finance director, as you know, when we made a hire of this position, which by the way is out of probation now, and that's one of the reasons it gets on this list, we hired at the very, very low end of the scale. And the reason that we did that primarily didn't have to do with quality of people, but had to do with level of expertise within the public sector. As you know, you hired someone from private sector to be converted into the public sector. And so we're trying to move this along as well with the marketplace that we see for finance directors. You remember the number that you saw, number of folks that we had. Finance directors are in high demand. We're lagging the marketplace. Next one is police chief. This one is anticipation really of two things. First of all, organizational change that we're likely to see in the not too distant future. I don't want to be behind. I don't want to have to pay somebody a lot more than we're paying the current person to find a new hire with the qualifications that we see within your current police chief. And so this is part of that as well. Public Works Director, as you know, we've been trying to make modification to move this closer to the midpoint. This is an ongoing step within that process. Recreation Program Supervisor, this is one that I think is important to you. As you know, when we made a hire just this last time for the director, we also saw data surrounding those lieutenants or those second in commands within regional communities, and we were lagging the marketplace there. And last is Transit Compliance Manager. We had discussion last year at this time related to this position, and frankly, when you made modifications, when you combined with LeSueur from MRET. As you may recall, at that time, both communities had separate coordinators, and our goal was to segregate those. I have two very specific positions with certain expertise and responsibility areas, and move one closer to the other within pay. I remember Councilmember Grams asking me specifically, why wasn't this one getting paid as much as the other one? Well, I was trying to provide and pay deference to someone who had been within transit system for more than 25 years as compared to someone who was relatively new within system. But at that time, my point was that over the next couple, 2 or 3 years, we try and move those to be closer together. And that's the process that this tries to fulfill as part of this change. I can provide a lot more information if you want, but wanted to go through those very specifically. As I think I mentioned earlier, but want to make sure that I cover this, what you see included in the resolution and why some of those are listed per hour is because they're paid in that way. The ones that are listed per year are paid on a salary basis, so that's why they're called out separately or differently within the body of the resolution. Again, 3% does not include folks like me, nor does it include your unionized folks. Union contracts, I hope the vast majority of them will come to you here in January. I think that's the case. But this is within the scope, the scale, and with the budget that we had set forward and that we've articulated on a number of other occasions. Mayor members, that's kind of my explanation on this one. The resolution's on page 142.
Questions? Not. Resolution establishing 2019 wage for non-union, non-contract employees. As Todd said, appears on page 142. Is there a motion for approval?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions or comments at this time? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Brand,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Graham,
Aye.
Councilmember Whitehead,
Aye.
Councilmember Fawnin,
Aye.
Mayor Zeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Carden.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. That concludes our new business. First, or next up, we have reports, and the first one, Mr. Brand, if you can gather right about there.
Oh, just have
No, Mr. Brand, if you can gather right over there, right at the middle.
Really?
Yes,
I have to stand in the middle?
you have to go. Jeff, this is going to be a tag team. This is like, let's call it good cop, bad cop. Okay. John's going to start out.
So what camera is he gonna face?
What camera
Tony.
are we going to use? What one do you want to use? This one?
It can be either.
Yeah, let's use that one. Perfect.
So with our back to the audience, facing the camera.
Make sure you get the
Sideways,
microphone.
John. You're sideways. You're okay.
Jeff, grab the microphone closer, would you? Yes. Turn it, or whatever you want to do.
The mayor asked that I would say a few words.
Okay.
So I thought, well, I'll just stand up and say a few words. But I started making notes of what I wanted to say, and it got kind of extensive. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to write this down. So unfortunately, I have it written down.
Okay.
Okay. It is my honor tonight to give the farewell to our council colleague who has, after 7 years on the city council, has accepted a demotion to the Minnesota State House of Representatives. Why he would want to do that, I have no idea, but it's your life. There are many positives to Jeff being on the city council. One of them is that he comes to the meetings every week with a smile on his face, as though he's happy to be here with us and to see us and work with us. Not something that all of us are able to pull off all the time. I think it's maybe because of your salesman career, your salesman personality, traits that are going to be very useful to you up in St. Paul when you try and convince other people to your point of view. Jeff's always done his homework, always done his research. Most of us do most of the time. One difference with Jeff is that when he was doing his research, often it seemed to involve personal contact with people around the state of Minnesota, bringing ideas and perspectives that we normally wouldn't see, and that's a little different than I've seen council members do. You brought perspectives to the council that were not always the same as the rest of us, and were unhesitatingly in challenging some of the older and more experienced council members, which some of us occasionally found annoying, sometimes occasionally annoying, but we benefited from it, particularly in hindsight now. We see that we benefited from it, so glad that you did that. We all on the council listen to people in the community who have issues, who want to talk to us about things that go on. It seemed to me that you, more than most, went out and sought opinions from people. Went out and pushed and asked and tried to draw out people to get their opinions and bring them back. You also spend time, a lot of your time,
working on state boards and commissions representing this city of St. Peter around the state, for which we are grateful that you would do that. It seemed that Jeff would bring to the council on certain issues more personal passion than we sometimes see in a council setting. A little, oh, really? Sometimes for the rest of us, but it helped us focus on the importance to you of this topic, and so I think we benefited from that too. Now, there have been rumors, I have heard rumors, true or not, I don't know, that Jeff's wife is the brains of the outfit.
This is true.
Well, true or not, my view is if you were smart enough to marry somebody even smarter, well, good for you.
Thank you.
So we send you off with our gratitude and best wishes. We hope that you don't forget us and other small towns in Minnesota and how important we are to the state. And we express our gratitude to you for the time you spent with us and for the talent you've shared with us. So,
Appreciate it.
thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Jeff?
Yes.
I'm not going to be that lengthy. I don't think anybody could. But, as a thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.
As a token, here, leave this in here. City,
Oh, well.
want to say good luck in your new position. You know, John kind of said something I was going to say. You and I started same time. You got sworn in a few minutes before I did. And I guess what I think is that, you know, some of us overachieve. So maybe someday you can be mayor too. So. No, good luck in your new position. Thank you for all your service.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much, Chuck. Appreciate it. Thank you. May I have the opportunity to say a few words as well?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank you all for helping us steer the ship in the right direction over the last 7 years. This was a team effort, although sometimes we disagreed. At the end of the day, we put our passions and our heart towards our job and our task in the community. And so I really appreciate that. Being elected to the State of Representatives, I feel fortunate that I've had 7 years of experience in the local government level, and I hope to bring that experience to the Capitol. There are other people who have been elected to that spot in the legislature that have city council experience as well, either as a mayor or a council member, and I hope to work with them to help them realize and understand what's going on in Greater Minnesota. Thank you also for allowing me to serve on the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities and representing St. Peter for the last 3 years. And as a board member, I felt it was a highlight to have all 93 cities come to St. Peter and kind of showcase St. Peter when Mankato and St. Peter North Mankato co-hosted the summer conference. And so that was a great highlight of mine. And please don't forget about me as well. I'm going to be up there in the state capitol, buried in paperwork, I'm sure. But I'm also going to set that aside, push that aside for constituent issues and elected official conversations as well. So if there's anything you guys can do to pass my way, any information or any questions or anything that you'd like to see the state do, feel free to give me a call or email me. My email is changed now. It won't be the councilmanbrand@gmail.com anymore, but it'll be rep.jeff.brand@house.mn. And for the people at home, I just wanted to say thank you as well for putting faith in me over the last 2 terms here in the city of St. Peter. And I look forward to doing the best job I can to represent this entire district at the legislature. And thank you to my wife and my children for also putting up with me disappearing every Monday night at 7 o'clock or 5:30. And for us, you know, having some opportunities to, you know, have some fun along the way and learn a little bit more about the city council and what we do in St. Peter. So thank you all. Oh, and one last thing too, and I can't forget this, and it was in the back of my mind. It was like the most important thing I was going to say, and I obviously forgot. So also, I wanted to say thank you to the staff. It's really important. You guys give us a lot of good information. You give us good direction. And, you know, St. Peter wouldn't be what St. Peter is without us having a great staff to rely on. So thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you, Todd, for all that you've done as well. Thank you.
We're gonna take a little recess for some photos, and then we will continue on after that. So Tony, if you wanna, it is 8:05 p.m. right now. So Jeff, you wanna get some photos with your family?
Yeah. Come on, family.
The other thing I had, and I think Todd is going to, I'll go off of yours based off what you say off board assignments and liaison positions. The other thing is, if someone wants to join me on next Tuesday, the 18th, at KEYC midday, I'm going to be on. And so, just performing a few Christmas carols. So Jerry?
Can we throw fruit?
So anyway, that's all I have, unless I'll have some at the end here too. So, Todd?
Mayor members, if I can, just a couple of quick ones here, actually three. First of all, to mention the meeting schedule, there are no council meetings scheduled through the remainder of the year. The next one that you will have will be on January 7th. You'll have a workshop on that evening, and then January 4th, the city council meeting. As a part of that meeting, and this goes into the second bullet point that I have up here, please make sure that you visit with Mayor Zeman related to council, board, and liaison appointment interest. In the past, you've contacted him and let him know what you're interested in. My hope is that that will be discussed as a part of the meeting on the 7th, so that appointments can take place on the 14th, and you be ready for that.
Along with that, if there's something that you don't want to be on anymore, and, let me know that too. If there's something, if we can find somebody else to do it, we will try to do that. So, okay.
Next one that I have is openings for 2018. This lists out the primary openings. So the HRA has 1, the HBC has 2, tourism has a couple, Parks has 3, and EDA has 1. And so that's what the openings for community members look like within those primary board and commissions. So we certainly want to let people know that there's a process. You can go online and there's a form to fill out, or you can stop by, we'll give you a little card. Yeah, and then they email the form back to us, so you can get it there, print it out, and send it back to us or drop it off. We're pretty easier. If you stop by, we can give you a card too that kind of has the same information on it. So we'd love to have those in. So as you're thinking about what you might want to do within the community for the upcoming year, these are great opportunities to serve St. Peter and to have an impact on what's going on and how things move forward within your community. Mayor and members, that's all that I have for you, except to wish you all a happy holiday season and a happy new year. And please feel free to call if you have any questions. It's not like we're disappearing. We just won't see each other for about 3 weeks or so. And so I hope you all have a great, safe holiday season.
And that's the only other thing I wanted to add was Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, whatever one you choose. Other than that, Jeff, is there a motion to adjourn?
I would like to make one last motion, and that's to adjourn the meeting.
All right. Is there a second, Jerry?
Second.
All right. All in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. I didn't ask if council had anything. Did anybody else have anything else to add?